In a candle-lit chamber, where shadows danced on tapestries of crimson and gold, a noble woman reclined on a velvet chaise. Her silk gown shimmered like moonlight, but it was her neck that drew the eye, pale as alabaster, adorned with a delicate pattern of dark, glistening leeches. Their tiny bodies pulsed rhythmically, drawing her blood in a ritual as old as the stone walls around her. She gazed into a polished silver mirror, her reflection ghostly, her lips curving into a faint smile. This was no ordinary mirror. It was a crimson mirror, reflecting not just her face, but her sacrifice. In its surface, she saw the promise of beauty, pure, luminous, divine. But beneath that promise lay a truth she could not yet fathom. Beauty, in her world, was born of blood. Across the ages, from the courts of medieval Europe to the palaces of ancient empires, one ideal reigned supreme. Pale, unblemished skin, it was more than a fashion. It was a language, a code that spoke of status, virtue, and power. In the shadowed halls of 12th century France, a pallid complexion marked a woman as noble, untouched by the sun that bronzed the hands of peasants. In the ancient courts of China, it was a symbol of purity, a canvas for the soul's clarity. In the Mughal Empire, it was a divine gift, a glow that elevated queens above mortals. But such beauty was not easily won. The skin had to be flawless, no trace of redness, no blemish, no whisper of imperfection, and for that the blood itself had to be purified. This was the domain of the leech, a creature both humble and revered, small, slimy, and unassuming. It held a power that captivated healers and beauty seekers alike. In an age when medicine was as much art as science, the leech was a tool of transformation. Ancient physicians, from the Greeks to the Persians, believed the body was governed by for humors blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. Too much blood, they argued, could flood the body with heat, staining the skin with ruddy hues or unsightly marks. Leeches, with their precise blood-sucking bites, were nature's answer, siphoning away excess to restore balance. This practice, known as heredotherapy, was not merely medical, it was a ritual, a bridge between the earthly and the divine. In medieval Europe, leech therapy was as commonplace as a modern-day spot treatment. Though far more visceral, apothecaries kept jars of leeches in their shops, their writhing forms glinting like dark jewels in the dim light. Women of means, noble women, merchants' daughters, even actresses would visit these practitioners or summon them to their homes. The process was meticulous. The skin was clean, the leeches carefully selected, their tiny jaws guided to the neck, wrists, or even the delicate skin near the eyes. Each bite delivered a natural anticoagulant, ensuring the blood flowed freely, a crimson offering to the ideal of beauty. The women endured the sensation, a sharp pinch, and a strange warmth as the leeches worked, their bodies swelling with the life they drew. This was not a practice confined to Europe. In ancient Egypt, legends whispered that Cleopatra herself used leeches to maintain her fabled beauty, her skin as luminous as the Nile under moonlight. In the Mughal courts, physicians blended Persian and Indian traditions, using leeches to cool the blood, ensuring a complexion that rivaled the pearls adorning their empresses in China. Traditional healers saw leeches as a way to harmonize the body's cha, the vital energy that shaped both health and beauty. Across these cultures, the leech was a universal symbol of purification, a creature that could draw out impurity and reveal the divine within. Imagine a woman in a medieval manner, seated before her mirror as her maid prepared the ritual. The air was heavy with the scent of lavender and wax, the silence broken only by the soft clink of glass as the leech jar was open. The maid, trained in the art, placed the creatures along her mistress's jawline, their bodies clinging to the skin like dark teardrops. As each leech fed, it fell away, leaving a tiny wound that wept crimson. The woman did not flinch. She had been taught that this was the price of perfection, that her blood must flow to cleanse her from within. When the ritual was complete, she studied her reflection, her skin paler, her eyes brighter, her face a step closer to the ideal. For a moment, she was the embodiment of beauty, a living statue carved from sacrifice. But the crimson mirror held secrets it could not reveal. The leeches, for all their promise, were not benign. Each session drained more than blood. It sapped strength, risked infection, and sometimes left scars that no powder could conceal. Yet women across the world embraced this practice, driven by a desire that transcended pain, to be seen, to be revered, to be beautiful. The mirror might show a flawless face, but it could not reflect the caustic cost that would become all too clear in time. In the opulent halls of Versailles, where chandeliers cast a golden glow over silk-clad courtiers, a queen reclined in her private chambers. Her wrist, delicate as porcelain, bore the faint marks of leeches, a testament to her devotion to beauty. Her ladies-in-waiting, their own necks dotted with similar scars, watched in reverent silence as a physician applied another creature, its dark body gleaming like a jewel. This was no scene of suffering, but a privilege, a ritual reserved for those who rule not just empires, but the very ideals of beauty. In the courts of queens, leeches were more than tools, they were symbols of power, wealth, and divine grace. In 17th century France, the court of Versailles was a stage where beauty was as much a performance as a trait. Pale skin was the ultimate courtesy, a stark contrast to the sun-darkened faces of laborers. Noble women, from Madame de Pompadour to Marie Antoinette, turned to leech therapy to achieve the ethereal glow that defined aristocratic elegance. Physicians, clad in somber black, were summoned to the palace, their satchels brimming with leeches harvested from Europe's marshes. The process was a spectacle, often performed in semi-public settings to showcase the lady's commitment to perfection. The leech glow became a whisper legend, a luminous pallor that seemed to erase all traces of mortal flaw. The ritual was precise, almost ceremonial. Leeches were applied to the neck or temples, areas believed to influence the complexion most directly. The women sat still, their faces composed. As the creatures worked, their bites a small price for the radiance that followed. Courtiers marveled at the results, their murmurs carrying tales of skin so pale it seemed to glow from within. For these women, beauty was not just personal, it was political, a visible declaration of their place above the common world. To be beautiful was to be powerful, and leeches were the key to that power. Across the world and the marble palaces of the Mughal Empire, leech therapy took on a different but equally revered role. Empresses like Nur Jahan, whose beauty was as famed as her intellect, wove bloodletting into a tapestry of luxury. Mughal physicians, known as Hakims, blended Persian medicine with Indian Ayurveda, using leeches to cool the blood, countering the heat of the subcontinent's climate. that could redden or blemish the skin. The leeches were kept in ornate jars, their care a task for skilled attendants, and the ritual was performed in the zenana, the women's quarters, where beauty was cultivated as an art form. The process was as sensory as it was medical. Alongside the leeches, hakims applied rosewater compresses and sandalwood pastes, their scents mingling with the faint metallic tang of blood. The goal was not just pallor, but harmony of complexion as smooth as the silk that draped the empress's shoulders. For Mughal women, beauty was a reflection of divine favor, a mirror of the soul's purity. The leeches, with their ability to draw out impure blood, were seen as a path to that divine ideal. Their work as sacred as the prayers offered in the palace mosques. In both Europe and Asia, leeches were a luxury, their use limited to those who could afford them. In England, during the reign of Queen Elizabeth I, leeches were so costly that only the wealthiest could procure them regularly. Apothecaries marketed them as a secret to eternal youth, their jars a status symbol in themselves. The process required time, skilled practitioners, and a tolerance for discomfort, all of which underscore the privilege of the elite. For queens and noble women, the faint red marks left by leeches were not scars, but badges of honor, proof of their dedication to an ideal that set them apart. Yet even queens bore the burden of perfection. In France, Marie Antoinette faced relentless scrutiny, her skin a canvas for the court's expectations. In the Mughal Empire, empresses were expected to embody a radiance that mirrored the empire's glory. Leech therapy was as much a duty as a choice, a reminder that even those who ruled the world bled for beauty. The marks on their skin told a story of sacrifice, one that echoed across continents and centuries, binding women in a shared quest for an impossible ideal. In the heart of a medieval town, where cobblestone streets wound past timber-bird houses, a small apothecary shop stood shrouded in the scent of dried herbs and wax. Its wooden shelves groaned under the weight of jars filled with roots, powders, and strange, glistening creatures that writhed in their glass prisons. On a scarred table, illuminated by the flicker of a single candle, lay the tools of a trade both revered and feared. A lancet sharp enough to slice silk, a bowl of crimson-stained linen, and a clay jar where leeches pulsed like living shadows. These were the instruments of the surgeon apothecary, the unsung craftsman of beauty in an age when perfection demanded blood. To the women who crossed their threshold, noble women in velvet, merchants' wives in fine wool, even courtesans cloaked in secrecy, these tools promised a transformation as profound as it was perilous. The surgeon apothecary was no mere healer. He was an artist, his canvas the human body, his medium the blood that flowed beneath the skin. In medieval Europe, where humoral medicine reigned, these practitioners were guided by the ancient wisdom of Galen and Hippocrates. They believed that beauty began not with the face, but with the blood, the river of life that carried both vitality and vice. A complexion marred by redness or blemishes was a sign of imbalance, a signal that the humor's blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile were out of alignment. Leeches, with their delicate, deliberate bites, were the perfect remedy, drawing away excess blood to restore harmony and reveal the luminous pallor so prized by the elite. The preparation of a leeching session was a ritual in itself, steeped in precision and care. The apothecary began by selecting his leeches, often harvested from nearby marshes or imported from distant wetlands at great expense. Each creature was inspected for size and vigor, its body sleek and dark, its hunger evident and the weight coiled against the jar's walls. The patient's skin was cleansed with warm water or a tincture of lavender, ensuring no impurity would taint the process. The leeches were then applied with a steady hand, often to the neck, wrist, or temples areas believed to influence the complexion most directly. The bite was sharp but fleeting, followed by a strange warmth as the leech's natural anticoagulant, hirudin, ensured a steady flow of blood each creature could drink until sated, its body swelling to twice its size before it fell away, leaving a tiny wound that wept like a ruby. These sessions were not conducted in sterile silence, but in an atmosphere of reverence, as if the act of bloodletting were a sacred rite. The apothecary might chant softly, invoking the wisdom of ancient healers, or offer assurances to his patient, promising a glow that would rival the moon. For the women who endured this ritual, the discomfort was a small price to pay. They sat patiently, their eyes fixed on a distant point, imagining the mirror that would soon reflect their transformation. The tools of the trade were as varied as the practitioners themselves. Some used simple clay jars to store their leeches, while others favored ornate glass vessels, their contents a display of wealth as much as utility. Lancets, when used, were honed to a razor's edge, often paired with bowls to catch the blood or linen cloths to staunch the flow. In wealthier establishments, silver tongs were employed to place the leeches with precision, elevating the act to a performance of luxury. The surgeon apothecary's shop was a world unto itself, a place where science and superstition intertwined. Alongside the leeches, shelves held salves of crushed rose petals, tinctures of myrrh, and powders said to enhance the skin's clarity. Some practitioners offered charms or prayers, blending medical knowledge with the mysticism that permeated their age. In England, apothecaries might advertise their leeches as royal worms, claiming they had been used by the Queen herself. In France, they were marketed as the secret to the Versailles glow, a nod to the court's obsession with valor. These claims, though often exaggerated, spoke to the allure of the leech creature that promised not just beauty, but a connection to the divine. Yet the work was not without risk. A careless practitioner could apply too many leeches, leaving a patient weak and dizzy, her body drained beyond what was safe. Infections could creep into the tiny wounds, turning a quest for beauty into a battle for survival. Scars, though small, could linger, a permanent reminder of the price paid for perfection. The surgeon apothecary walked a fine line, balancing the demands of his clients with the limits of the human body. For the women who sought him out, each session was a gamble, a dance with danger in the name of an ideal that held them captive. In the cool, shadowed halls of a Chinese palace, where silk curtains whispered with the breeze, a noble woman sat before a bronze mirror. Her skin, smooth as jade, was the envy of the court, but its perfection was no accident. Beside her, a physician of the imperial household prepared a ritual as ancient as the dynasty itself. From a lacquered box, he drew a small, writhing leech, its body glinting like polished obsidian. With practiced hands, he placed it along her wrist, where her pulse beat softly beneath the skin. The leech clung, its bite a fleeting sting, and the woman's eyes remained serene, fixed on the promise of harmony. In the East, beauty was not just seen, it was felt, a balance of body and spirit, and the leech was its humble instrument. In Asia, leech therapy was woven into the fabric of traditional medicine, from the courts of Tang Dynasty China to the ashrams of ancient India. Here, the pursuit of beauty was inseparable from the pursuit of health, guided by philosophies that saw the body as a microcosm of the universe. In traditional Chinese medicine, the concept of qi, the vital energy that flowed through all things, was paramount. A complexion marred by redness or dullness was a sign that qi was stagnant. The blood heated or impure leeches, with their ability to draw blood and restore flow, were seen as a way to harmonize the body, clearing the path for qi to move freely. The result was a skin that glowed with the clarity of a still pond, a reflection of inner balance. In China, the use of leeches was a practice reserved for the elite, performed by physicians trained in the intricate arts of acupuncture and herbalism. The leeches were often applied to specific points along the body's meridians, chosen not just for their proximity to the skin, but for their connection to the flow of energy. The process was accompanied by other rituals: cups of ginseng tea to bolster vitality, compresses of chrysanthemum to soothe the skin. The leech was but one part of a holistic regimen, its work complemented by the scents of sandalwood and the soft chants of a healer invoking balance. For the women of the imperial court, these sessions were a moment of stillness in a world of constant scrutiny, a chance to align their bodies with the ideals of beauty and grace. In India, leech therapy found its place within the ancient system of Ayurveda, where the body was governed by three dashas: vata, pitta, and kapha. A flushed or blemished complexion was often attributed to an excess of pitta, the fire element that could overheat the blood. Leeches, known as jaloka in Sanskrit, were prized for their cooling effect, drawing out hot blood to restore equilibrium. Ayurvedic practitioners, or Vaidyas, applied leeches with a reverence that bordered on the spiritual, often chanting mantras as they worked. The leeches were kept in earthen pots, fed on milk or herbs to ensure their purity, and applied to the neck or behind the ears, where their bites could influence the skin's appearance. The ritual in India was as much an art as a science. Vaidyas paired leech therapy with pastes of turmeric and neem, their golden and green hues a stark contrast to the crimson trails left by the leeches. The women who underwent these treatments, queens, princesses, and high-born ladies, saw their beauty as a reflection of their dharma, their duty to embody divine order. A clear, pale complexion was not just desirable, it was a mark of spiritual purity, a sign that the body was in harmony with the cosmos. The leech, in its humble way, was a bridge to that harmony, its work a quiet act of transformation. Across Asia, leech therapy was a mark of privilege, its cost and complexity limiting it to the wealthy. In China, leeches were often imported from distant rivers, their transport a feat of logistics that only the imperial household could afford. In India, Vaidyas guarded their knowledge closely, their skills passed down through generations. The women who sought these treatments bore the marks of their devotion: faint red dots that faded into their skin, a silent testament to their pursuit of perfection. Yet, like their counterparts in Europe, they faced risks: weakness from blood loss, infections from poorly managed wounds, and the ever-present pressure to maintain an impossible ideal. In a dimly lit chamber of a 16th-century manor, a young noblewoman sat before her mirror, her reflection a study in contrasts. Her skin, pale as moonlight, glowed with the ethereal clarity she had sought, but her eyes were sunken, her hands trembling faintly as they clutched the silver frame. The leeches that had adorned her neck only hours before lay discarded in a bowl, their bloated bodies a testament to the blood they had claimed. She had paid the price for beauty, but beneath the surface a deeper cost was mounting, one that no mirror could reveal. For centuries, women across Europe and Asia had surrendered their vitality to the leech, driven by an ideal that promised perfection but often delivered pain. The pursuit of a flawless complexion, so revered in the courts and palaces of the world, carried a toll that went far beyond the fleeting sting of a leech's bite. The physical dangers of leech therapy were as real as they were insidious. In an age before sterile instruments and modern hygiene, each session was a gamble with the body's resilience. Leeches, though carefully tended by apothecaries and physicians, were often harvested from murky waters, carrying unseen pathogens that could seep into the tiny wounds they left behind. Infections were a constant risk, transforming the delicate red marks of beauty into festering sores that could scar or even kill. In medieval Europe, where sanitation was rudimentary, a poorly managed leeching session could lead to fevers or abscesses, leaving women to suffer in silence for fear of tarnishing their reputation. In India, where Ayurvedic practitioners took great care to purify their leeches with milk or herbs, the risk was lessened, but never eliminated. The body, already weakened by blood loss, was ill-equipped to fight such intrusions. Anemia was another silent thief, creeping into the lives of those who pursued the leech's promise too fervently. Each session drained not just blood, but strength, leaving women pale not from beauty, but from exhaustion. In the courts of Versailles, noblewomen who underwent frequent leechings might find themselves fainting during a dance or struggling to climb the grand staircases of the palace. Their pallor, once a mark of elegance, became a sign of fragility, their bodies depleted by the very ritual meant to enhance them. In China, where leech therapy was part of a broader regimen to balance qi, practitioners warned of the dangers of overzealous bloodletting, cautioning that too much could disrupt the body's harmony rather than restore it. Yet the pressure to maintain a flawless complexion often drowned out such warnings, driving women to endure session after session in the name of beauty. The scars left by leeches were not always physical. The emotional toll of this relentless pursuit weighed heavily, particularly on those whose lives were defined by their appearance. In the Mughal Empire, where a queen's beauty was seen as a reflection of divine favor, the failure to maintain a perfect complexion could bring whispers of disgrace, eroding her influence in the zenana. In Europe, noblewomen faced constant scrutiny, their worth measured by the clarity of their skin and the brightness of their eyes. The leech became both a savior and a tyrant, offering a fleeting glimpse of perfection while demanding ever more blood, time, and resolve. Some women, exhausted by this cycle, began to question the ideal itself, but to step away was to risk social exile. Duty was not just a desire, it was a duty, and the leech was its enforcer. For some, the toll was permanent. Disfigurement, though rare, was a haunting possibility. A leech applied too long or to a delicate area could leave scars that no powder could conceal, turning the mark of beauty into a mark of shame. In England, tales circulated of women whose faces bore the faint, pitted scars of overzealous treatments, their beauty marred by the very practice meant to preserve it. In Asia, where leeches were applied with greater care, such outcomes were less common, but the risk remained. The irony was cruel. The quest for a flawless exterior could destroy the very thing it sought to create, leaving women to navigate a world that judged them by their appearance, while offering no mercy for its flaws. Yet, despite these dangers, the allure of the leech persisted. Women returned to the apothecary's shop or the physician's chamber, driven by a culture had equated beauty with worth. The mirror might show a face transformed, but it could not reflect the cost of weakened body, the infected wound, the quiet despair of a soul bound to an impossible ideal. The leech, for all its promise, was a reminder that beauty was a fleeting, fragile thing, bought at a price that only the brave or the desperate were willing to pay. In a modern spa, bathed in soft light and scented with eucalyptus, a woman lies on a pristine table as a technician applies a mask of her own blood, drawn and spun into a golden serum. The vampire facial, as it's called, promises a youthful glow, a nod to an ancient belief that beauty lies within the blood itself. Across the world, detox teas and cleansing rituals flood social media, each claiming to purify the body from within, echoing a ritual that began centuries ago with a leech's bite. The practice of bloodletting for beauty may have faded from the courts and palaces of old, but its shadow lingers, a haunting oft-image in a world still captivated by the idea of cleansing for perfection. The echoes of leech therapy resonate in today's obsession with purity and renewal. In medieval Europe and ancient Asia, the leech was a tool to purge the body of tainted blood, restoring a balance that manifested as clear, pale skin. Today, that same impulse drives the popularity of detox-fed juices, supplements, and treatments that promise to flush toxins from the body, delivering a glow that mirrors the ideals of old. The vampire facial, where blood is drawn, processed, and reapplied to the skin, is a direct descendant of herodotherapy, its sterile needles replacing the leech's jaws, but its goal unchanged: to harness the blood's power for beauty. Even leeches themselves have not vanished entirely. In modern medicine, they are used to promote healing after surgeries, their ancient role as purifiers reimagined in a clinical age. The psychology of these practices reveals a timeless truth. The desire to be beautiful is inseparable from the desire to be pure. In the courts of Versailles, a noblewoman's leech marks were a badge of her commitment to an ideal that elevated her above the common. In the zenana of the Mughal Empire, a queen's radiant complexion was a mirror of her spiritual harmony. Today, the pursuit of beauty through cleansing rituals reflects that same longing to shed the imperfections of the body and soul, to emerge as something closer to divine. Social media amplifies this drive. Its filtered image is a modern mirror that reflects an ideal as unattainable as it was centuries ago. Yet the toll of this pursuit remains, just as medieval women risked anemia and infection. Modern seekers of beauty face their own dangers. Vampire facials, when performed improperly, can lead to infections or scarring, a chilling parallel to the risks of leech therapy. Detox diets, often lacking scientific backing, can deplete a body of nutrients, echoing the weakness caused by excessive bloodletting. The emotional burden persists as well, as women navigate a world that demands perfection while offering little room for failure. The leech may be gone, but the pressure it represented, a pressure to sacrifice for beauty, endures. The story of bloodletting for beauty is a story of human longing, of a desire to transcend the mortal and touch the divine. It is a story of queens and commoners, of surgeons and Vaidyas, of creatures that drew blood and women who gave it willingly. It is a story that began in the candle-lit chambers of ancient palaces and continues in the sterile glow of modern clinics. The leech, once a symbol of purification, has left its mark not just on the skin, but on the soul of beauty itself, a reminder that the quest for perfection is as eternal as it is elusive.